about how I felt, as it were, after writing it. I mean, it's quite a kind of nice question to reflect upon. And it leads me to sort of respond a little bit to President comment that I seem to be much more dismal in what I said, and perhaps less balanced than is the book. I think in many ways I actually felt somewhat more pessimistic after finishing writing Reinventing India than now, actually, because it did seem to me that, as I think it seemed to many people at that moment, that the Hindu nationalism was really on the rise, and the construction of a Hindu Rashtra was really on the cards. And I think that one of the changes of the last decade is that while, as we explain in the book, we think that there is a kind of banal Hindutva which is very, very widespread and which is linked to developments of relation to religious practice, perhaps particularly amongst middle classes. I think the political ascendancy of Hindu nationalism it seems to be, if you will, in check. This is now sort of linking up a response to that question with Prasenjit's very, very fair point. Perhaps in some ways, I have become not exactly more pessimistic, but more critical, even since finishing this book. And I think it's in part because I'm really struck by this total obsession with growth that marks contemporary India. There is nothing else but for so many of the political and professional classes, there's nothing else but growth, and anything to do with economic and social rights certainly has to take second place to growth. And as we say very clearly in the book, we clearly recognise the importance of economic growth for tackling problems of poverty and so on. But it's clear that from the comparative work that the impacts of growth upon the reduction of poverty in India are really very seriously constrained by the extent to which, and the way in which inequality has increased. So, I mean, in a way, I think that questions about optimism or pessimism about a country is a little bit kind of misplaced. I mean, I suppose for all of us as citizens, there are moments where we feel kind of optimistic about our place, and times when we feel pessimistic about our place. But I think as a scholar trying to assess change that's taking place in a society, I think it's rather difficult not to come out with a much on the one hand and on the other kind of a view. And further response, I'm sorry, I will get to other questions, I will not go on too much longer, but further response to your point, President, about the pessimism of dismal picture that I presented. I think I might have said more in the latter part of my presentation about the significance of the recent rights legislation. The point about the lack of attention to the right to information is very well taken, because I am impressed with work that I've learnt about since finishing writing this book, about the extent to which, through right to information, groups of people have been, village people have been able to hold the state, hold officials to account in a way which I think can be generative of mobilizations which are beyond the mobilizations around narrow identities that Professor Dial was speaking about, and that I referred to very briefly in passing. So I think I have perhaps, in some senses, in what I said, painted too dismal a picture. Post-neoliberal state. We're running out of time. I think generally I think I see this very strong tendency on the one hand towards the reliance on technocracy, the wish to, as far as possible, take key public decision making out of democratic fora, and leave it to the experts. And I think in urban governance, but particularly, there are very strong tendencies in that kind, and that I think goes with what I see as, in some senses, the reduction of citizenship to consumer citizenship. A phrase which is used by a very professional NGO that I know in Chennai quite well, and it uses the phrase consumer citizen with pride, and it emphasizes the importance of people's freedoms, but really as consumers, and that I sort of see as one part of what's going on in the post-neoliberal state. But on the other hand, there are some sorts of counter movements which may be very inchoate and limited. But and I think Nirja, your points, which I would like to take up more, but the loss of a sort of sense of public interest amongst the most sort of senior officials. That's also, I think, part of this, the tendencies in the post-neoliberal state, if you can call it that I was mentioning. But there are also some officials, who have played an extremely important part in ensuring the passage of the right to information. And so, there are other things, if you will. It's not all one way. There are other tendencies on the part of senior bureaucrats and officials, and there are mobilizations which may be very much mobilizations of intellectuals, good middle class people, but which,
as opposed to the bad ones.
Yeah, exactly. There are good ones and bad ones. Absolutely right. Put it very simply, wasn't it? institutions of governance. I couldn't agree more that actually more analysis and more thinking about institutions of government, including Parliament itself, which Ronna Joy is working on, very, very important. Questions about the takeoff of the Indian economy. I refer you to my colleague, Dr. Palit there. I think he's probably a better guide on the likely future trends of the Indian economy than I am. Sorry, that's a bit of a duck out, but I better stop talking.
Rahul,